2:45 के आसपास एकदम भगदड़ स्टार्ट हो गई, तो हम भी देखने लगे कि क्या हुआ है। जब पूछा तो पता लगा कि ऊपर गन शॉट हुआ है।
मेरा पति साइड में था, एक इंसान आया, उसने उसको गोली मार दी।
The photograph of a newly wed young girl sitting stoically as the lifeless body of a 26-year-old husband lies on the ground has become the picture of the terrorist attack on tourists at Baisaran in Pahalgam. The attack has shaken India. It is unprecedented in its brutality and brazenness. This is the biggest attack on civilians since 26/11 in 2008. Chilling accounts of survivors talk of how terrorists in police uniforms came out of the forest to this picturesque spot around 2:30 p.m. They separated the tourists in two groups, men on one side and women and children on the other. The tourists mistook them for security personnel. Some recount how the men were asked their religion and shot dead. Some others were told that they were being shot because they had supported Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And some others were just shot and they dropped dead next to their family members. As gunshots rang through what is known as mini Switzerland, peace in Kashmir Valley lay shattered once again. It is Thursday, the 24th of April. From the Economic Times, I'm your host, Nidhi Sharma, and you're listening to the Morning Brief. It is a somber moment for all of us. The attack has brought back the memories of the massacre of Chitsinghpura in the year 2000. There are parallels here. Like Baisaran, Chitsinghpura was also in Anantnag. Terrorists dressed in military fatigues entered the village, went door to door ordering male members to line up in front of the Gurudwara. Then they killed 36 Sikh villagers. The massacre came ahead of US President Bill Clinton's visit to India. Baisaran came on the day US Vice President J.D. Vance was in India, and Prime Minister Modi had begun his visit to Saudi Arabia. The motive is obvious: to get international attention. It also comes days after Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir's speech calling Kashmir the jugular vein of his country.
It was our jugular vein. It is our jugular vein. We will not forget it. And we will not leave our Kashmiri brethren in their heroic struggle, what they are waging against the Indian occupation.
The government has swung into action. The Prime Minister cut short his visit. Home Minister Amit Shah went to the valley within hours, and the opposition parties have thrown their weight behind the government. I am joined by Economic Times Kashmir correspondent Hakeem Irfan Rashid to help us understand what this attack means for Jammu and Kashmir. Welcome to the Morning Brief, Irfan. Can you please describe where the terrorist attack has taken place?
Yes, this spot that is where the attack took place is called Baisaran Valley. It's tucked in the mountains in Pahalgam. Pahalgam is a popular tourist destination which is around 100 kilometers from the summer capital of Srinagar, so in the South Kashmir. And for our listeners, it's also the area where we have the holy Amarnath shrine and the cave. From the Pahalgam valley, this Baisaran is a small valley in the another small valley in the mountains, locally called as Mini Switzerland. And this is around 4 to 5 kilometers from the Pahalgam town. So we see that this, because of the ponywalas and the horses, the road has not been maximized, and also majorly what people do, they park their cars at a certain section, and from there onwards they go on ponies or trek by foot to reach to this valley there.
Could you describe the incident for us?
So, as per the eyewitnesses, the incident happened around 2 p.m. in the afternoon on Tuesday. When we spoke a few tourists or the locals, they said they saw these people coming down from, at least couple of them. They came from the forest area. So this is Baisaran is a valley with a mountain, and this mountain connects you with the Chenab Valley, the Kishtwar area of the Chenab Valley, which is on the Jammu side. So this is a whole mountainous range which connects the whole Kashmir with the Chenab Valley. I think they have the hideouts in the forests. When we see the area, there are no major permanent habitations from the forest side. So they have come down from the forest and they have trekked. It seems that they must have trekked for a few days to reach to the spot. Baisaran is a valley with the small hutments and makeshift eateries where people sell Maggie and other eatables. So what happens there is that the locals have and the tourists, they have seen two people coming with the bags, and they started with asking questions, and then they opened the bag and when directly targeted the male tourists, sparing the women and the children. This was not a very quick and hesitant operation. They came down, they spoke to people, and they even had a conversation with few of the tourists, and then they targeted them.
So, Irfan, is there no police presence around there?
No, you have to understand, this is the major misconception. You have to understand these are the small valleys in the mountains. So you see, there is a huge armed forces and police presence in the base camp of the Pahalgam and main area of the Pahalgam. So this is a getaway from a Pahalgam, which is a small valley where no incident has happened in the last 20-25 years. So this valley is completely tucked in the mountains. And the problem is that they cannot keep armed forces and the police presence everywhere and anywhere. There may be a small tourist police or a tourist guide type of people there. You will see a lot of these mountains in Kashmir Valley where treks happen, where people go on their own. There is no security forces present in these areas.
Has there been a change in see how things function after the abrogation of Article 370?
Two things. When we say what after 2019, when the Article 370 was abrogated and the J&K was divided into two union territories of J&K and Ladakh, you have to understand a few complexities that came in the situation on the ground. One is Kashmir was completely under control, and there were the incidents of the militant incidents or the stone pelting incidents. They reduced considerably. There was completely almost no street violence and all. And as you said, South Kashmir, in which Anantnag is one of the districts, had a major presence of militants till 2017 and 18. You saw a shift in the militancy and the infiltration towards Jammu in the last few years. You have to see that in Jammu, you saw in the mountains of Jammu, foreign infiltrators came in from the routes which were not active in last 2 decades. So over the past few years, you saw there was an activity in the Jammu region, and we saw some of the sporadic attacks here and there in Jammu region. So what makes this incident unprecedented? And it is sort of crossing a red line in the fact that over the last 3 decades, we haven't seen such a major violence against tourists. We have seen attacks against the Amarnath Yatris, which has a context. We have seen attacks on the armed forces and the police and the security forces, and even attacks that happened in over the last few years in Jammu. But this is an unprecedented attack in a way that this is the first time that the tourists have been targeted. And when we go through the conversations over past few years, you saw here non-locals were targeted earlier as well, but not in huge numbers. They were the workers that were here. This breaks that whole idea of normalcy and peace that was developed in the last 5 years and that government worked hard on. And it will have a long-lasting impact and the consequence for the region.
So, Irfan, what do you think is the messaging of this attack?
Couple of things. What we heard on the some of the eyewitness accounts, they said that one of the attackers was a young attacker, and he had a conversation with a tourist from Maharashtra in which he talked about the propaganda that happens against Kashmir on the media. And then he also talked about the BJP government and how their policies have impacted J&K. And this was a conversation with a tourist from Maharashtra. And following that, he asked one of the tourists to speak the azan, words of the azan, which is the Islamic recitation, and he was not able to do that, and then he was shot. And also there was a narrative going on the ground over the past few years that after the abrogation, a lot of outsiders will be settled in Kashmir. And with that, when the domicile and the permanent residency laws were removed, in the recent assembly, the government said that 83,000 non-locals have been given the domiciles in J&K. So this attack is in that context where now the tourists are seen as an extension, somehow as the extension of the BJP government's policies, and seen as that they are trying to influence the land.
And currently you're there. So is there a shutdown in the valley now?
Yeah, as you see, Nidhi, after the attack, the traders, lawyers, and Mutahida Majlis Ulama, which is the amalgam of the over 50 religious organizations across J&K, they have called for a shutdown. And as of now, when we see that shops haven't opened, the public transport is not on the ground, the private school association has also called for a one-day strike. So the schools are not functioning today. So we have seen the life has been paralyzed after the attack, and there is no movement. We just see some of the tourists who are trying to rush out of the hotels, and they're trying to reach to the airport and go out of valley.
The attack comes right ahead of the tourist season in the valley. So what is obviously there will be an obvious impact. So what do you think would be the impact?
Definitely, we have to understand Kashmir is an agriculture and a horticulture economy largely. But when we see tourism, it is the most visible economic activity that Kashmir especially has. And tourism contributes 7% to the GDP, the state GDP. So definitely with this attack, we have seen a large scale cancellations. People, the tourists today in morning have seen them rushing out of the hotels and going towards they have booked their tickets back to their own places. Unfortunately, we have seen that our national highway, which connects Valley with the rest of India, is also closed because of the landslides. So there is a kind of chaos on the ground. This is an immediate impact. People are canceling their bookings. Hoteliers have said that they will give free cancellations. The airlines prices have skyrocketed last night, but now few airlines have said that they won't take advantage of this situation. And the scale of the attack definitely means that this will have a long-lasting impact, not just for this season, but I think some kind of shadow will remain there for the whole year now.
What do we know about the terrorist organization behind this attack?
Nidhi, we haven't got any official confirmations from anywhere. So there were some social media statements that floated and the statements that were not refuted, in which it was said that the resistance front, which is considered to be the offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba, this resistance front came into existence after 2019. They have been claiming attacks here and there since 2019. And even today, in one of the statements that was circulated on social media, they have mentioned that tourists are now seen as an extension of the Government of India's policy to control Kashmir. And they also mentioned this 83,000 domiciles that have been issued by the government to the non-locals over the past few years. So they have said that this is in response to that. Also, we have to understand over the past few weeks, we saw a lot of clips coming out from across the border. From Muzaffarabad, we saw that these militant commanders who are active there, they talked about scaling up the violence in Kashmir. So there was a build up to this situation. I will tell you, I had a conversation with a BJP leader last week, a senior guy, and they mentioned that they were expecting something big is going to happen. And there was a kind of palpable tension even within the security brass and the political class. They would talk about that something big is going to happen, because you have to see there were groups of infiltrators that were active in Jammu, and they were not doing anything big as such. So the natural corollary to that situation on the ground is that why are they there? What are they up to? Why aren't they doing anything big? So these were the natural questions that the intelligence agencies, that the security forces, that the armed forces, they keep asking. So you see that after the government was elected here, after 6 years in October 2024, but this is an elected government within a UT setup. So the law and order and the armed forces, the police doesn't come under them. It is directly handled by the MHA through Lieutenant Governor. So we have seen that the elected government has demanded statehood, restoration of the statehood, in which the law and order and the police will come directly under them. They have criticized, they have said, the leaders have often mentioned about this palpable tension and uneasy calm. They have said that this is going to erupt someday. They have been keeping signaling about that. And we saw that even yesterday, when Home Minister Amit Shah arrived in Srinagar, he held a security brief in which Chief Minister Omar Abdullah was not present, although he had a separate conversation with him as well. So there is a political dynamic to it, that there is an elected government, but they are not directly concerned about the law and order because it doesn't fall under them.
So, Irfan, do you see the demand for full statehood take more ground after this attack?
It's a both sides argument. When the elected government here, led by the Omar Abdullah, will say that, listen, this happened despite you saying that everything is fine. And as the side will say that, listen, we want to, still is the need of the course correction, and there is some kind of possibility of these kind of attacks. But after the elected government was sworn to power, people here have talked about statehood and the restoration of statehood. That remains the larger demand, and even in some sections, the restoration of Article 370, which of course BJP and the Supreme Court had sealed forever.
Thank you, Irfan. We'll keep coming back to you for more updates. Please stay in touch and stay safe.
Thank you, Nidhi, for having me. Thank you.
As Irfan summed up for us, this is a huge security challenge for India. If you see social media posts, you know we face another danger of this terror attack taking a serious communal shade. This is the time the government has to act fast and decisively. And as it does this, it needs to take everyone along. This is all we have for you today. This episode was sound designed by Rajas Nayak and produced by Vinay Joshi and Anirban Chaudhary. Thank you for listening, and if you like this episode, do spread the word. All new episodes of the Morning Brief podcast drop every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday. It streams on Amazon Prime Music, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts. And of course, ET's own audio platform, ET Play. All clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits mentioned in the description. I'm your host, Nidhi Sharma, signing off.